Gunpowder. In case you don't know what that is, it's a powder for propel bullets. Moving on. Gunpowder is made up of three primary components: charcoal, saltpeter, and most importantly, sulfur. Like many other elements, sulfur was originally formed in stars, especially larger ones, near the end of their life cycle. Sulfur is also formed on Earth from things like volcanic emissions and plants in the ocean. There are other ways, but it would take a while to name them all. Sulfur is normally found naturally in the form of crystals, but can be a byproduct of modern day industrial processes. Like water and carbon dioxide, sulfur even has its own sort of cycle. But where do we come in? Well, it's a little unclear, but we have known about sulfur since the caveman days, when sulfur was used as a pigment for cave wall paintings. In 1600 BC, the Egyptians used sulfur dioxide to bleach their cotton rags. Sulfur has even been used in medicine, referred to in one of the oldest recorded instances of medication as being used as a tonic. It was used for other things up to the medieval ages and today. Moving on from its more colorful and medicinal uses, sulfur used to be a pretty handy sort of insecticide. People would burn sulfur in their homes to drive off many different types of vermin, such as mice, ticks, fleas, roaches, the list goes on. Simply sprinkling sulfur powder in the corners of a pantry was apparently enough to keep the food safe. But somehow, sulfur even managed to weave its way into religion and superstition. It is even referred to as brimstone in the Bible, most notably in Psalms 11:6. Take a look. The Romans would burn sulfur under things such as furniture, personal belongings, and more in a ritual to quote-unquote purify the object with the smoke. This was apparently such a common practice that there were even attempts to make the object smell better afterward, using things such as herbs and myrrh. So far, things were going pretty easy in the story of sulfur until someone realized that it could be weaponized. Sulfur, alongside its new uses in fire displays, was used to make flaming arrows and spears. One famous use was in what is called Greek fire, used by the Byzantine Empire in the 7th century, and is likely the reason why the Byzantines were around for so long. It was actually such a closely guarded secret that we today don't even know how it's made. Now we come to the interesting part: gunpowder. Gunpowder is believed to have been invented in 850 AD, though other dates float around, in China, when Chinese scientists were attempting to create a sort of elixir or potion of immortality. When they mixed sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter together, it somehow got set ablaze, and one witness of the event stated that the scientists' hands and faces were burnt, and the house that they were working in had burned to the ground. The Chinese didn't really know what to do with this newfound powder, but they eventually used it in fireworks, something that the Chinese are famous for. It wasn't until 904 AD where they used it to tip arrows and spears, just like how sulfur was used. After this, the Chinese got creative and created rockets that would be launched from tubes. They were reverse stationary weapons like a cannon, but they were very shortly after converted into handheld weapons, now hailed as the world's first gun. But wait, it gets better. The Chinese even created the earliest forms of flamethrowers, landmines, and grenades. Up until the 13th century, gunpowder was a monopoly of China, but they couldn't keep it to themselves forever. Along the Silk Road, the knowledge and technology of gunpowder was spread first across Asia, then to the Middle East and into Africa, and eventually ending up in Europe. The Europeans almost immediately began finding ways to improve the black powder, creating things such as corn black powder. The first principal European gun, created in 1353, is believed to be credited to, believe it or not, a German monk by the name of Berthold Schwarz. Eventually, in 1520, a Portuguese ship carrying European rifles made its way over to China. When they showed off their modernized rifles, it was clear that the Europeans had surpassed China in military technology. One of the biggest problems in battles back then was the smoke guns created that would completely envelop the battlefield. Cannon crews would rely on strong winds so that they could maintain clear shots. In the Civil War, there were countless cases of friendly fire, all because soldiers couldn't see who they were shooting at through the smoke. In 1884, smokeless powder was created. There are two types, single base and double base. Single base is more prevalent and it includes nitrocellulose, while double base includes nitrocellulose and nitroglycerin, the same material used in dynamite. Nowadays, gunpowder is used almost entirely for ammunition. There are also a lot more different types. Trying to name them all would take a long time. There are different types for different guns, to put it simply. Today, sulfur is used to make sulfuric acid, which is used in fertilizers, batteries, and cleaners. All of this tells us one thing: Gunpowder is one of mankind's greatest and most influential creations, with a seat alongside other great inventions like electricity, flight, and long-range communication. It has changed the course of history and has influenced some of mankind's greatest and deadliest creations, from the guns we used to use in wars we once fought to guns we use today in wars we still fight. Gunpowder has and shall continue to be the fuel of war.